manufacturing, technology, hot topics, and a little bit of tomfoolery. This is the MTD Podcast.
Welcome to today's MTD Podcast. A little bit different today. We're talking about Brexit and actually the fact that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
I thought Brexit's all going to be doom and gloom, isn't it?
Absolutely not, Colin. Why do you think that? Who have you been listening to?
Well, you know my opinion on politicians and watching Question Time. I've got a direct line to Curry's because every time Question Time or anything like that on TV, I stick a brick through the screen. It's cost me a fortune, but I hate them. I cannot tell the truth. Don't get me going on a rant. Anyway, back to you, Paul.
So that's Colin's opinion on it. But we're joined, we have a guest with us today, Sanjay. Sanjay, you're the manager. Well, I'll tell you what, you tell us a little bit about your company, because I know this is going to be an interesting insight for engineers as to what you do and how you may be able to help.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. As Paul says, my name is Sanjay Vallabh. I am Managing Director and Principal of Vallabh Associates Limited.
My first question, how much did you spend with the marketing team to come up with that name?
Well, hundreds of thousands, Colin, as you can imagine. And I went back to the first one I put on the list.
Okay, Vallabh Associates it is then. Sorry about that, Sanjay, get on with it.
It does what it says on the tin, Colin. So yes, I've recently incorporated, and off the back of 15 years worth of commercial and corporate banking experience, I thought I'd come out into the real world, really.
When you say corporate banking experience, it's specialising in trade, international finance side.
That's right. So I've been supporting businesses for a number of years with their international requirements, whether that be helping them export, ensuring that they're getting paid, putting in solutions to ensure they can fund those contracts, really.
And what sort of businesses would they be, size-wise ranging?
Yeah, so there's they range in a good degree of sizes. So I've dealt with your smaller sort of one-man band, potentially operating out of their garage, and that's more around exploring the opportunities of export and looking at an international process of their business, right up to your top level OEMs and tier one suppliers into them. So
this for you. So for you at the moment, this is quite a poignant time, isn't it? Because there's lots going on and lots of interest, I assume, in what you actually do and what you can offer.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and as you guys have said,
not, is there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Deal, no deal. I'll tell you what, I'm flipping eight Noel Edmonds. Absolutely.
So it's all about the chase now, Colin. Come on, get with it.
So he's been doing that for years. He's never caught her either.
Yeah, they've all run faster than me, mate, I tell you.
So at the moment, it's pretty uncomplicated to trade, isn't it, with Europe, as we all know. But things may change.
Absolutely. Whether there'll be a full deal, a Norwegian project, a Swiss project, we don't know that. And unfortunately, I don't think the politicians know that at this stage. But what we do know, things will change.
And we hear these terms as well about Norway plus, Norway plus plus, Norway plus 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 plus. What are they? Can you give us any detail about what those kind of trade arrangements are?
So different countries that operate outside of the EU will have different arrangements, and that comes down to how well they can negotiate their deal and what they have. So the Swiss, I believe, for a long time didn't have a deal, so they had to come up with the Switzerland deal. And then when Norway opted out of the process, they came up with their own project in terms of how they would
project. They use the same marketing team to name that stuff as your company.
Well, they're in good hands then.
Absolutely. Anyway,
do you know what the Norway deal is? Do you know any details about what the differences in trade there is there from what the world, the WTO rules are, or the current rules with the EU?
So at a high level, they have specific arrangements to be able to trade with the EU. Now that comes, as a part of a negotiation. So they allow a certain element of free movement of people within their borders, and really to try and adopt some of the better processes that the EU have, but still remain in control of potentially their policy making, and some of the more pertinent facts that you would want running a country, really.
I suppose ultimately though, engineers are sitting there at the moment and thinking, right, I'm exporting to Europe. Come March the 30th, it's going to grind to a halt. It's going to be a nightmare. Can you give me some confidence, Sanjay? Because we're all going to blame you if it goes wrong.
You wouldn't be the first, Colin.
Okay.
So yeah. There is going to be some disturbance and change in the market, but what my advice would be is to prepare and understand what these implications are going to be. So,
how can you simplify it for people listening here, our engineers, our suppliers, whatever they are?
Yeah. So, for example, there are a lot of tools here.
Thanks. Yeah.
Colin being one.
Bit rude,
No, there's a lot of tools and services available for businesses who want to explore what these potential implications can be. Now, whether that might be an implication in terms of the customs procedures that are going to be needed, because at the moment, I'm sure you're all aware, there is free movement, between goods and people traveling, whether you're buying in Belgium or Italy or France and bringing them into the UK. Now, going forward, there's going to be a change to that process. Now, that process already exists because we've been exporting to businesses outside, customers and businesses outside of the EU for a number of years. We do a lot of trade with China, with India, with the BRIC countries, with the US. There's good opportunities. So it's about understanding what that process is going to be and how that will affect that business, but not just your business, how it may affect your supply chain. So if you're exporting, say, to Italy, Colin, then absolutely, you've got to understand the process and the procedures to be able to do that. But similarly, if you're importing in, then your supplier will have a different process to go through. So it's what does that look like, and how do you upskill yourself? There's a lot of questions on that side.
So what does it look like, and how do I upskill myself?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend is to actually get the facts rather than and any sort of political rumblings or
don't speak to a politician then.
Well, no, but there's a lot of news out there, whether it be on social media, whether it be through the press, but actually cut through that and actually understand what that process is. And the government, to be fair to them, have put a lot of information and a lot of services out there on their website that will actually tell you what the implications will potentially be.
What is a website?
So it's ukgov.com and then /Brexit tool.
Oh. Within our industry, we hear things on the news, JLR stories. And in fact, one of the ones the other day was the Airbus, where they said it could be. Obviously, there was government intervention there, I believe, in making Airbus say that to obviously try and get us out of this situation we're in at the moment. So we don't end up with no deal. In your opinion, knowing the laws around the movement of goods, do you think it would be catastrophic for there to be no deal, or do you think it would be something we'd get over quite quickly?
That's an interesting question, Paul. I think from a negotiation...
First for Paul. Sorry, mate.
From a negotiation point of view, you need to leave that on the table because, let's just think the EU at the moment, if you took no deal, the option of no deal off the table, then they know that the UK has to come up with some deal, and it puts all the control from the EU side. I think what it will do is, do I believe there'll be, no food on the shelves and, we'll be rioting on the streets with our yellow vests? No, that's not how we operate in the UK. We call for debate, we challenge, and we look for the answers. So there is opportunity behind that. So, for example, there's going to be a change to the way that the goods are coming in. And yes, there will be some disturbance in terms of the time frames of how those goods come in, because you may, operate a just-in-time process. We can pick up the phone or send an email or go on a portal, and within a few hours, within a few days, potentially the goods are at site. That's going to change, and you need to understand. And what I would encourage is to work with your supply chains, with the different elements that all impact your business, whether that be the vertical or horizontal, aspects, and have a plan, have a strategy, understand how you're going to do that, and it gives you a perfect opportunity. And this is the big thing I would say, guys, around Brexit. Yes, there is going to be some challenges with it, but change represents opportunity. So, it's a time to take down barriers, not build them.
You see, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because the country is so split, and one day you'll hear a story from, say, Jürgen Meyer from Siemens about how disruptive it's going to be with importing goods and exporting and supply chains. And then the next you'll listen to, I was listening to David Davis the other day, the ex-Brexit minister, I believe he was, wasn't he? And he was saying that actually the EU have form in the fact that they literally will wait till the last minute to budge. And it could be March the 29th at 12 o'clock. And they actually have something they call, which is extra time. And they actually have used that on many occasions when they've got into these negotiations, and they've stood firm right until the last minute. And he believes that that's what will happen again. But the thing we can't have is ministers actually believing that that won't be the case and buckling and giving concessions away in order to agree a deal that's inferior than what we've got. So I think they need to stand firm.
Yeah. But I think taking a step back, it's a case of, and speaking to a lot of engineers out there, don't panic. We will adapt. It's as simple as that, and we're all big enough, and we can do that, and we've done it many a time before.
Absolutely, Colin. We've been through a number of different challenges as a country and as business operators in the past, and we've got through them. And there's no reason why we won't get through that. And just coming back on your point, Paul, I think it's a really pertinent point, because from the very start, Theresa May and all the political teams have said the EU will wait for the last minute, to be able to do that. So that position hasn't changed. My frustration with it is there is political connotations with Brexit, absolutely, but there's a large part of business, and somehow they seem to be muddled together. And what I would encourage is get the politicians to deal with the political part and let the businesses who deal with this day in, day out lead that. And I believe once you've got that deal and we then have the ability as a country to go out and negotiate these deals, it will be in a good place, because let's not forget, we're Great Britain. We've been around a long time. We're pioneers of international trade. We know what we're doing. We've got to put faith and have a bit more confidence in ourselves. And I almost feel that you can't talk yourselves up now, because then you set yourself up for a fall. But we shouldn't do that.
But in your line of business, you're dealing on a day-to-day basis with people that are importing and exporting. Would you say, as a percentage, they're greater in favour of remaining than they were of Brexiting?
At this stage now, yes, I believe that that would be the case. I couldn't put a number on a figure on that.
We won't quote you on it, Sanjay, but
yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say 99% or anything like that, Carl.
But is it quite high? Would you say?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a change in the personal view of that individual or of that group. I think it's just the way that it's been managed.
No one wants to introduce complications when you don't necessarily need them, do they? But some could say that that's a short-term view, because in the longer term, it's a big world out there.
Yeah, I know. My personal view is that view is born out of frustration, rather than are we doing the right thing? Is this the best thing for us going forward in the future? We've almost got Brexit fatigue. Every day you turn the TV on, there's something else about Brexit.
Can I come back to, though, in terms of an engineer's sitting here at the moment thinking, it's going to be a flipping nightmare. You mentioned the government support on the website. Sorry to sort of curtail what you're saying, because I think we're getting too politicised there almost, if I can use that word.
There's no such word.
Is it not?
No, I've just looked at it in the dictionary. But carry on.
No, you put me right.
We know what you mean.
So you can go to the government website, get some help there. What about, it's going to cost me money to do that. Can you get any government support?
Good point, Colin. You can indeed.
That's why I'm here.
Excellent. So, there's going to be change to the customs procedures, for example, but the government is helping businesses out with that by providing a grant of up to £2,500 for businesses to be able to help retrain with their customs procedures.
Where do I get it?
You go onto the government website,
which is
www.gov.uk.
So if you're an importer, it's just relating to exports, obviously.
Exporters and importers, anywhere where there's a inward and outward movement of goods, there's going to be procedures with their customs. Right. So that is where and there's a lot of good things out there that the government is trying to do, and businesses, and whether there be logistics, whether there be in the advisory side, whether there be people like myself trying to get in there and support those businesses. There's a lot of help and support out there, but unfortunately, as we said, it has been sort of lost in translation or buried at the bottom, because there's a lot more newsworthy things, or shall we say, articles that will get a lot more likes and clicks and shares on social media now.
All the stuff that MTD do, I think. Is that right?
It's the sensationalized side of it, whereas
I don't know about sensationalized, Sanjay. That's a bit.
I encourage a balanced view. Let's be balanced and understand what are the cons, what are the pros, and how you mitigate them. And it's a real good point, because there is a lot of help for businesses that are trading out there, financial help as well as technical and practical help. And on another side, if the business is then looking at new markets as part of any frustration and challenge they have with the Brexit, because again, there is going to be opportunities out there through the Department of International Trade, UK Export Finance. There's financial support for businesses to go and capitalise on those markets.
So, but as a bit of a plug for Vallabh Associates, all these places you're mentioning, if someone has got any questions or wants to move into Europe post-Brexit, or they want to export to, Mexico, protect themselves and make loads of widgets, and they're going to spend a fortune, they want to make sure they get paid and all things like that, and handle documents, contact yourself and you can talk them through all these minefields that I've got no idea
Absolutely. It's, where I would help is in a number of different ways, but the key ways, I would say is sort of demonstrating and what the art of the possible is for that business.
Art of the possible.
Yeah, what the art of the possible is. And, a real sort of catchphrase in my world, which I am going to trademark because, it's a great one, is what I try and do is demystify the dark art of trade, because it can be complex.
We've
when
already
it
got
doesn't
that
need to
one,
be.
Sanjay. Too late, mate.
No, I've already registered it. Sorry. So, there's there's a lot out there, and what I'm trying to do is make it simple. So whether that be managing and raising finance, and as we said, there's a lot out there. How does an engineer, how does a business find all of this information? Because there's a lot, and this is why people like me exist, is to almost be a conduit to that and channel that information and make sure it's relevant.
And with your expertise, we hear so much about the supply chain. It's in the automotive industry, parts and aerospace coming from here, going overseas, coming back again, as the assembly goes together. Mm-hmm. And you deal with importers and exporters within your business. Some say this split, call it, is going to be, if there is one, more damaging for Europe than it is going to be for us. And some say it's going to be more damaging for us than it is going to be for them. Agreed, there's going to be pain on both sides. But with the people that you deal with and the companies that the quantities of imports and exports that you look at, who will be hit the worst, do you think?
God, you're throwing some tough ones at Sanjay, aren't you? Because people are going to quote him on this. You said, Sanjay.
Paul, I wish I could give you a sensible answer to that. All I will say on that point is this. There is a vested interest within Europe for Brexit and post-Brexit not to work, because if it then works, what does that say about the European Union? Ooh. Yeah. What this does do is give us control around our destiny, and it is going to cause some problems, for these businesses that have an import and export cycle, because unfortunately we don't necessarily have the raw materials in the UK to be able to produce steel or iron or, in the quantities that we will need. But what we have is the expertise, the knowledge and the experience to make that happen. So, where there's a great opportunity for us as a business is to actually export our skills and expertise, because people want them. So we'll be trading in a different way, I believe. So there'll be a lot, we're seen as a safe haven as the UK. We're a centre of excellence, of knowledge. People will be coming to us to understand our skills, and how we can actually then export them. So I think there'll be, a slight, change in terms of the mix of that business, but it's down to us to, make it successful.
It's down to us to make it as painless as possible from that side. We are an innovative country, and we're an innovative business. And like you sound, yours is as well. Sanjay, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We'll
Cheers, Sanjay.
publicise your website details on the links on our channels so people can visit you and find out more.
In simple terms, don't panic about Brexit, import and export, speak to you.
Absolutely.
Is that nice and simple?
Love it.
Well done. Glad you came. Cheers, Colin. Thanks, Sanjay.
Cheers, Paul. Cheers, Carl.